This show is brought to you by Betkoza, an opportunity for you to make a little bit of money. Welcome to the Fut-Afrique channel, where you and I get to talk about all things rugby. The big talking point for this week is, of course, the 2023 Rugby World Cup final between the team that's ranked world number 1, which is the mighty Springboks, and then the All Blacks. A team that I know the man that I'll be having this conversation with loves a little bit too much, I would say. Some might say a little bit more than the Springboks. His name is Simakuhle Mzamo. My brother, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing very, very well. I'm a little bit concerned about your dress code heading into this important weekend. Black and white, are you showing us your allegiance here?
My flip-flops are green and gold. My
But
underwear
that's at the
is
bottom
too.
of the outfit, it doesn't count. Do you own a Springbok jersey? Let's start there.
I do own a Springbok
Do you
jersey.
own an All Blacks jersey?
I do own an All Blacks
Which
jersey
one are
as
you
well.
wearing on Saturday?
Whichever one's clean.
Ooh, that's not a straight answer. So you might be wearing the All Blacks jersey.
Might be wearing All Blacks, might be wearing Springboks.
See, man, I thought we were friends. Talk to me about the Rugby World Cup before we dive into the semi-final matches that we've seen this past weekend. Quite exciting rugby action. How has the Rugby World Cup been for you?
Oh, man. I think in my experience of Rugby World Cups, this has been definitely the most exciting. I think because there were so many teams that were touted to actually that could take the cup, I think that's what made it the most exciting. Most other World Cups, there's only been 1 or 2 teams with, let's say, a chance, or that were given a chance they could take the cup. From the beginning, this was, you know, touted to be one of the best, and it's definitely lived up to its bidding. And, you know, things like that first game, France versus All Blacks, and France beat All Blacks, it turned everything on its head, and everyone started, you know, wanting to watch the rugby. So I think it's been great so far, and it's culminated in what most rugby fans would say is probably the most applicable final. I think these are the 2 rugby powerhouses, historically and with accolades as well. So it couldn't have worked out any better.
You talk about the final. Before we jump into the final, I want to talk about the team that you love so much, the All Blacks. When they lost against France in that opening game, was it a possibility, at least in your mind, that they could go on to the final?
I think I wasn't thinking the final. It wouldn't be smart to do so, because there was a job that had to be done prior to that. The main thing is that within the pool stages, you can lose a game and still make it through to the knockout stages, and that's where everything counts. The same way that the Springboks, I remember a few World Cups ago, they had lost in the opening game to England, and then went on to win it. So it's possible. The Springboks showed us that it's possible. It had never been done before then. So now it's no longer such a far-fetched notion to have. But at the end of the day, you would still need to get out of the pool stages in order to give yourself a chance to get into the final.
Getting out of the pool stages was something that they did so well. And to me, when they got into the quarterfinals, all of a sudden, they just brought back that switch. The All Blacks just have the switch, and when they are switched on, they are so clinical. Looking at that semi-final against Argentina, thrashing them by 6 points to 44, how clinical were they?
It's a simple thing. The game of rugby is very simple, to be honest. Firstly, you can't play without the ball, to be honest. As much as we've seen the Springboks do it and do it successfully, but you need the ball to win, and you need to win big moments. But what they did very well is that they took their opportunities and capitalized on it. And then we also saw moments of individual brilliance within the game. But from number 1 to 15, everyone was playing their part. They stuck to their structures. They were being patient. They played phase play. They didn't try and run it from first phase all the time. And those are just things that show that the work that they've put in, they stuck to their guns, stuck to their structures. There were very big periods. The first, I think, 7 or 10 minutes of that game, they were pretty much defending the whole time against Argentina, and Argentina was just phase after phase, but they stuck to their guns, trusted each other, and trusted their defensive patterns. But you can't play down the fact that they won all their scrums. They won every line-out barring one. So, I mean, that's 100% scrum percentage rate. I think a 95% line-out win rate. I mean, things, and they stole three or four line-out, or three line-outs, I think, of Argentina's ball as well. So it's those little key elements, and they think they got about 4 or 5 turnovers as well. But also, it's not about the number of turnovers. It's the key moments when you actually make those turnovers. Because in the Ireland SA game, Ireland made double the number of turnovers in that game, but yet they didn't win. So it's also important about timing and trusting the process. But there's a lot of experienced guys in that team who are there to help guide and within a game and ensure it's being managed adequately or properly.
I love what you mentioned there about key moments. There were several key moments in that Springbok game where I felt different decisions needed to be made. The first 5 minutes, I was already shouting at the screen, shouting at Bongi Mbonambi, begging him to kick full poles. Key moments. You said the All Blacks did it well. Did the Springboks handle those key moments well in their semi-final against England? Yes, we won by 1 point, but now we'll have to take on an opponent that's clinical in the big moments.
There were 1 or 2 decisions that some people may have felt should have gone a different way. You know, I think the moment you're speaking was quite early on in the game, and they had the opportunity to go for poles, or I think they ended up going for the corner. But that's because also South Africa is historically known, and everyone in the rugby world knows how clinical they are when it comes to lineouts and mauls. Probably one of the most successful teams when it comes to that. So I do understand the notion behind trusting your maul, putting the defensive team under more pressure, possibly forcing them to concede another penalty. And I mean, you know, 1 or 2 more that can lead to a card. So the thinking behind that is understandable, but it was early enough in the game where you could have gone either way. But again, some of the decisions you make can come back to bite you later on in the game. And also in knockout rugby, you want to build scoreboard pressure and put the other team under pressure as much as possible, whether you're ahead or chasing. So yes, you know,
Would you say that Bongi Mbonambi didn't have the confidence to take that kick? Because I believe that's the case. Because when you want to build scoreboard pressure, you always take the kick. Because it would have meant that at least now we are leading on the scoreboard, and psychologically we would have been leading as well.
That's fair, but also understand that there's a whole leadership structure. There's a number of leaders on the field apart from Sia, and decisions like that are usually there's quickly, you know, do we go corner, do we go for poles? Also, there's mandates that are given down from the coaching box, and also they have the lights. So perhaps that was a decision that also came from the top. So we can't always blame or put it on maybe he was confident or not. I think that would be unfair, because Mani also needs to move to the beat of the team and also the leadership structures. So if your captain is telling you go for the corner, you're not going to ask for a tee. And that's trusting in your captain, trusting in the leadership, trusting in the coaching structures. And I think that was it around it. I don't believe it had anything to do with confidence. We saw him kicking the week before. You know, he slotted his kicks. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that we always have to consider.
Your thoughts on Handré Pollard now donning the number 10 jersey, the fly-half jersey, Bongi Mbonambi not being in the starting 15?
It's an interesting call. I mean, we did see there was a type of shift that happened when Mani was subbed off, which I think we'll touch on slightly, and when Handré came on. But at that point in the game, what had been going on for that first 30 minutes, I do understand the decision. Handré is a completely different player from Mani. And if Mani is not in a situation or a game where it plays to his strengths, then it exposes some of maybe the elements of his game that aren't as strong. So when you put on Handré, it's a completely different thinker. He runs and manages the game very differently, and also has a wealth of experience from a very young age. So I understand why you would put a Andre on, for instance, as your starting 10 in a final like this. But also, if we think back to the huge loss that the All Blacks suffered at the hands of the Springboks, Mani was at 10, if you get what I'm saying. So it's all dependent. The Springboks have such a wealth, a vast depth of players and a squad that when they are looking to play the game in a certain way, they can then just sub off or put pieces of the puzzle in, take others out, and it will fit in perfectly for whatever they're trying to achieve. And the nice thing about the Springboks is that a lot of the time when you replace one for the other, the standard of play doesn't drop, which is something I had mentioned the last time we had chatted. So if you're in a position and you're able to do something like that, you can always have leeway to play around with your team. But Andre has the experience, he's been there. He's been right in the pressure moments. He was in the final. He was one of the key men in the campaign in 2019. So things like that, the experience, being able to be cool under pressure and such, some of those experiences you can't put a value to it. You have to have experienced it to be able to go through it. It is a big stage, but I do feel that Mani maybe should have been in and around the bench, but that bench split is also
quite interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You talk about the bench split, pardon me, in terms of what we are expecting this weekend. I want to talk about the number 2 jersey before we do a proper analysis of the squad. Bongi Mbonambi, everybody has been talking about it. Everybody has been commenting about it. Every South African got quite passionate about it. Your thoughts, specifically the fact that we will be seeing him in the final on Saturday?
I'm happy that he's playing. I think for the sport itself, you want to have 2 full-strength sides, 2 sides that are, at the peak of their powers, in a sense, top-ranked sides. But we also know the pedigree of player that is on that field. You want a full-strength Springbok team versus a full-strength All Blacks team, so that there can never be, let's say, excuses down the line to say, but we didn't have this player and this player. Understandable, yes, Malcolm Marx is not in there, but I mean, he hasn't been for a while, but yet they were able to beat, 3 of the top 4 teams in the world. So I'm happy that he's playing. I did, read up and heard the audio clips around the alleged racial slur. My opinion, from just having watched Bongi for a very long time, he's never someone who's always in scuffles, something with the ref or with other players and all of that. So just purely from a perspective of what you've seen prior to this, it seems somewhat out of character, at least for the individual on the field. And the people who've come out in his defense, they haven't defended anything to do with the situation, but spoke to his character and who they know as a person and a player. So, and it's very palatable, the fact that you would be making calls on the field in Afrikaans, because firstly, there is a large contingent within the squad that are Afrikaans-speaking players. But secondly, if you are trying to make calls and you don't want the other team to be aware of what you are aware of, speaking a language that most of them, if not all of them, don't understand, is probably your best bet. Like if you are
keep the message encrypted.
Yes, so it's a way to encrypt messages as well. So I saw a visual and an audio clip, but when he was saying this, the defense started moving in the direction he was pointing in the instance as well. So I think that after the investigation, it'll come out that it was just a misunderstanding, and it's understandable that Tom Curry would complain about it because that's what he heard. But if he doesn't understand Afrikaans, he doesn't know that there is a similar phrase that could be misconstrued as the other one. So it's fair on both sides, but I don't think it should get to anything from what I saw, but we'll see what the investigations come up with. The IRB has made some funny calls, so we never know.
They have.
But I'm glad he's playing.
Yeah. That's what I also wanted to emphasize. I think for the South African nation, for the team, it was vital that he's a part of the squad that starts the game.
And he's a leader. I mean, when Sia goes off, he's captain.
Yes, he's vice captain.
Yeah. So I mean, it would be a huge loss.
And also, given the fact that we don't have another specialist hooker, because who were we going to turn to? Malcolm Marx is already injured. Bongi Mbonambi was the go-to guy.
They'll probably
and
put
now
Kwagga Smith.
Kwagga
He plays
or,
everywhere else anyway.
Or Dwayne Fourie, Dion Fourie,
Dion, yeah.
So yeah, let's move on to the bronze medal encounter. England taking on Argentina. Are we expecting any surprises in this one? I would say that this one goes to England because they've had an easier journey throughout the World Cup. They were beaten, some would say, by luck, by the Springboks. And this one should be a foregone conclusion. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think my money would be on England. Just looking at how they've played throughout this tournament, they also have gone pretty quietly throughout the pool stages. No one was really, before the World Cup started, no one really gave them a chance, myself included, because of their form leading up to it. They showed up in the World Cup, put in some very strong performances, clinical as well. And they narrowly lost out to the Springboks, and we saw the tactics that they employed. They put the Springboks in 6s and 7s. The Springboks at some stage didn't seem like they knew how to handle what was going on. The ruck battle as well, England was right on top of them when it came to the rucks. That fight was intense. And then also putting them under the high ball and actually regathering quite a few of those balls. I think they kicked from hand about 42 times, 42 kicks from hand. And they regathered like 11 of those, which was quite a high statistic generally from what we see in a rugby game, especially kicks of that nature where it's a 50-50, anyone could get it. So I think England should take it comfortably. Argentina's form has been seesawing in a sense. And now you're not sure which Argentina is going to turn up on the day. Also, the loss of one of their flankers, Pablo Matera, huge, immense figure on the Argentinian field. I think that also was a big blow for them, even leading up to the game against the All Blacks, as he was someone who actually went and played for the Crusaders in New Zealand, got to see how the All Blacks play, and you saw there was a change in the Argentinian style slightly in the way they played. So he was a big influence and was a huge loss for them. I don't think they'll take it. I think England should be able to win relatively comfortably in that game.
We spoke about it earlier, the big one, the final, 9 o'clock on Saturday. Which jersey are you wearing? And why do you believe that team will win the game?
I think it's, I understand when it comes to sports and sports fans, we are very emotional beings and we get extremely invested in it. Like if my team loses, any sport, even football, anything, if my team loses, I'm sour. Then the kids don't want to talk to me. My wife is like, let me give them some space. So we get heavily invested, especially emotionally in sports as fans. This is a game that I think is something that everyone needed, firstly for the sport. I do believe it will be the most watched rugby game in history. And the whole tournament itself has given us a few upsets and shown us some resilience with a few teams as well. All Blacks seemingly found their fifth, sixth gear in the knockout phases, as you mentioned. But the Springboks, we look at the Springboks, you can never count them out. Even if leading up to a World Cup year, they had a dismal 4 years, you never count them out of something like a World Cup because they know how to win it. And that's an experience that can't be taken away. The same way that, there were the talks around when it was Ireland All Blacks, and it's like Ireland has never progressed beyond quarters and still hasn't to this day. That big match temperament, they've never been there. They've never been past there. So it's something that plays in the back of their minds. Whereas in both squads, Springboks and All Blacks, we have actual World Cup winners in those squads. We have guys who've played multiple World Cups, wealth of experience, a lot of caps. That game is too tightly contested for me to be able to call at the moment.
So you're not giving us a call?
I don't know if I can give a call. What I can say is that...
I heard your answer, but you're not getting to the point. I want to force you to tell us which jersey are you wearing on Saturday and give us a score prediction.
Here is...
Because I know you love both teams and I know that you can get very analytical about it.
Yeah.
Simple. Which jersey are you wearing? What's the score? Don't overthink it.
All Blacks, 4 points.
Yo!
It's a big call.
The All Blacks are apparently winning this Rugby World Cup, winning their 4th trophy, but I would beg to differ. I would say Siyamthanda Kolisi and the boys have shown that it's not just luck that wins you big moments. And I think that they can definitely do it against the All Blacks this weekend. My brother, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully your team loses on Saturday.
No, good luck, man. It should be a great game.
Thank you so much for joining us. Remember to continue the conversation on the comment section and also to like and to subscribe.